Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for our Facebook Live. We wanted to give you some information about the start of school for the 2020-2021 school year. Again, thank you for joining us. We're going to get to y'all's questions, and we have a few questions to start. Let me introduce you here. I'm Hannah Chalmers. I'm the Director of Public Relations for Angleton ISD.
I'm Phil Edwards. I'm the Superintendent of Angleton ISD, and I just have to say this: if you're wondering if this is the Hannah Chalmers that has been calling you for the last 3 months, the answer is yes, it is.
Sorry about that, guys.
And I'm Maria Masego, Principal at Central Elementary, and I will be translating after the English session in Spanish.
Maria hasn't been calling you in the last 3 months.
Yes, I am the one who's been calling you, and so I know we've all become really close friends. But we're going to get started with this Facebook Live. Like I said, a lot of it's about the start of school. We know y'all have a lot of questions about how school will look in the next few months, and so we're going to just get started with some questions. Make sure you ask us questions, and we'll get to them as we can. And I'm going to get started asking Mr. Edwards the first one.
All right.
What, kind of going back to what we dealt with last school year, the past one, what have you learned as we received feedback about how the district handled the COVID-19 crisis?
The first thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the parents who went online and filled out that survey for us. They put a lot of great feedback for us. There were a lot of positive comments. I think the thing that I would say that was the most interesting is the same problems that our parents saw, we saw as well. Internet access, the amount of learning and instruction that can go on at home, how to have help available if kids need it. Those are some of the things we know if we get put in this situation again next year that we will improve upon. We're already working on putting things in place to kind of remedy some of those situations. Hopefully, though, we won't be put in this same kind of situation that we were this last year. And so, but again, that seems to be the biggest feedback. We heard a lot about communication. Some of it, not enough communication. A lot of times it was too much communication. To be very honest about that, if too much communication is the problem, then I will take that. We just want to make sure that we're trying to let everybody know what's going on during this time. So.
How has COVID-19, how's the situation affected next year's school calendar, specifically the calendar?
Well, last night at a board meeting, we made an adjustment to the 2021 school calendar. It's very minimal. What we're going to be doing is this, a couple of things. First thing is we're scheduled to start school on August 19th. We will be starting school on August 17th with students. So instead of starting on a Wednesday, we're going to start on a Monday. The other thing that we have done is we had a professional development day for staff on February, I believe, 18th, which was President's Day. That will now become a holiday. Students had the day off anyway, so it won't affect students at all. And then the other big change we're making has to do with length of the school day. We are adding 5 minutes to the school day, so school will get out 5 minutes later at all of our campuses next year.
Is there a reason why we're moving it up to August 17th?
I think the biggest reason is we were looking to add additional minutes to the school year. That's how we get funded through TEA. It's not based on school days, it's based on school minutes. Adding 2 additional days and then adding 5 minutes to the end of the school day. And one of the things we're also going to do next year is we're going to take advantage of the guidelines and rules for that TEA gives us on attendance and ring a bell 10 minutes before classes actually start at a school, and we can count those 10 minutes towards our minutes in school. Classes will not start at any different time at any of our campuses. But again, we're just going to ring that bell to let kids into the building, or let kids go to school or go to class or do different things at that time. Adding those additional minutes will allow us to be able to take time off during the school year if we have to, due to COVID-19 or other things, like if a hurricane comes in, something like that. It will actually allow us to have 18 days off of school without having to make those days up next year. And so what we will do is we'll be very flexible about that time. If we see a spike in student absences or student illness, then we will may take a day or two off to clean the buildings, give people time away from each other, and again, we won't have to make those times up. If we go past those 18 days, then it is possible we would have to make time up. Currently, our calendar right now is scheduled to be out the Friday before Memorial Day. That will be the same day as our graduation. If we have to go past the 18 days and aren't given waivers by the TEA, then we would have to go to school in June to make up those days. And so that's the biggest differences of what our calendar looks like and why we've added those minutes that allow us that flexibility to take time off if we need to.
So you answered kind of some follow-up questions that I'm seeing is that if we possibly would have school in June or building in time for the shutdown.
Right.
So
I think the biggest thing is right now we are not scheduled to start or to have any school in June. If we are out more than 18 days, again, we don't get waivers, then it's possible we would have to go.
What will the start of school look like? Are there different scenarios that we're planning for?
There's actually 3 scenarios that we're taking a look at. I'll save the last one because I think we've gotten some guidance in from TEA today that kind of gives us some what we think school may look like. The other thing I'm going to tell everybody is that TEA is scheduled next Tuesday to give their complete guidance as to what the start of school will look like in terms of how we have to relate to COVID next Tuesday, and so we'll have more information then. But again, we're looking at 3 scenarios. The first one is no kids come. It looks very much like it looked this year or for the last quarter of this year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's some form, we will have some form of school. We're planning for also if everybody gets to come and what social distancing will look like there. There will be some changes we would have to do in those situations as well, but we're planning for that. So we're planning for nobody coming, we're planning for everybody coming, and then we're also planning for a blended of both of those scenarios where not everybody gets to come all the time. The guidance we've gotten today kind of lends itself to that's probably where we're headed, we think. But the one thing I will tell you is we've learned to be very flexible with this because things change weekly. But that blended time may look different on different campuses. This is just examples. None of this I'm fixing to say is finalized. It could look like on an elementary campus where some kids come in the morning and other kids come in the afternoon. So kids would come to school for half a day in school and then would do remote learning the other rest of the day at home. At the high school, it may look like an A-B schedule where certain kids come on A days and certain kids come on B days. We'll also take a look at certain types of kids or certain types of programs that kids have to be in school to be part of. And there's lots of different examples that are out there like that. One of the ones that comes to mind is kids who take CTE classes at the high school, like culinary arts or welding or ag. Those are classes that it's really hard to get learning done at home, so they may have to come on a more regular basis. And so we're looking at all 3 of those scenarios, and that's what we're working towards right now.
So one of the biggest takeaways from that is that it's not finalized, we're still planning, and we're planning for multiple different scenarios.
Let me also say this, is we are going to be contracting with a facility management company, and they're going to come in and help us schedule, determine building capacity, help us with schedules, things like that. That report and the finalized plans for that will be done by the end of July. And so we hope to be able to communicate exactly what we're doing by the end of July. The one thing I say, people may go, Hannah, why so long? How we operate schools with all the many different programs and many different kids and grade levels and things like that, it's a very, very complicated system, and it'll take us 5 to 6 weeks to get the guidelines in and then make determinations of how we're going to be able to implement those in Angleton ISD.
Yeah, it's important that we actually really thoroughly plan it out before we just release something,
right,
or speculate at best. Some follow-up questions to that a little bit. Will you have protocols that students and staff will have to follow? We're getting a lot of questions about masks and temperature checks.
So, the answer is yes, we have to have protocols. We have some protocols now. We will continue to have protocols. The state, TEA, gives us protocols as well. A couple of specific questions is about masks. At this time, currently we're open, we don't dictate that anybody wear a mask. If people choose to wear masks, they may. We expect that to be the same when school starts. Kids will not be required to wear masks, If they choose to, they can. Staff will not be required to wear masks. If they choose to, they can. One of the questions maybe after that is, will we provide masks for them? At this point, the answer to that question is maybe. We will have some supplies of masks that we will be able to make available, definitely to staff, possibly to students as well. But that being said, we may not. And so if you're wishing for your student to wear a mask next year, my recommendation would be invest in a mask for your child to wear. That way you can be guaranteed that they're able to wear those things. In terms of temperature checks, the answer is yes, we will actually have temperature checks every day. The district has invested in a scanner that will hook to a laptop, so kids will not have to wait in line as we take everybody's temperature on their forehead, and it may take an hour to get into school doing that. Kids will simply walk through the door, the computer will scan to see if they have a temperature. If they do, then they will be taken off to the nurse. If not, they'll be able to just walk into the building just like normal. And so that's something we think is important. So we go through the next year and it'll make entering into school and taking temperatures very easy for our students.
What about, we have this question specifically about before they enter a bus, about temperature.
The short answer to that question is at this time we have not determined what will have to happen there. The thought is our initial thoughts would be yes, they would have to have their temperature taken before they got on a bus. But we're going to wait and see exactly what the guidance is before we move forward with all of that. I would say you'll get a definite answer definitely before school starts. The answer is most likely that yes, they're going to have their temperature taken before they get on the bus.
Again, look for communication about that because we'll make sure and get that out before school starts. What will lunches look like, PE and recess, drop-off, pickup? Those are some questions.
Lunches, currently the guidance from TEA, and we'll get final guidance next week. We expect lunches to be served in classrooms, or if they're in the cafeteria, that kids will be very spread out and have assigned seats. Most likely the scenario will be that students will get lunches in their classrooms. What was after?
Recess, PE.
Again, we're going to have to get further guidance. The guidance we've been given right now is we will be able to allow those times, although it will have to be very structured, and the amount of kids in a space will be very limited. The concept of all of 5th grade going out to the playground and playing at one time will not happen. Right now the guidance is about 20 to 25 kids at a time can be out there. We're hoping to keep them 6 feet apart, but one of the things we've learned very quickly is that when you put students together, it's very hard to keep them social distance. And so, again, we'll get final guidance from TEA, and then we'll go through our processes and make determinations about what that will look like. In terms of drop-off and pickup times, again, it's just going to depend on exactly how we go set up a system for kids to come to school. It's very likely that those times will be staggered, but exactly what that will be and who will go in and all of that is yet to be determined. Those are things that we are looking at. I will say this, it is not feasible to stagger start times an hour and a half, 2 hours apart at a school. So at an elementary school, if we're starting at 7:40, it doesn't make a lot of sense to bring another group in at 9 and another group in at 11:30, and then we're dismissing at 3:45 and 5:30 and 7 o'clock. That's not something we're going to be able to do, nor is it something we're going to want to do. We don't want kids to be getting home at 8 o'clock at night because of staggered starts.
Getting several questions specifically about transportation. How will this affect transportation?
One of the specific questions says the CDC says 1 student per seat on the bus and a desk, 6 feet apart, those kinds of things.
Yes, the guidelines from TEA that, again, have consistently came out, and they reinforced those today. Desks will have to be 6 feet apart. There's actually a couple of other things we're going to have to look at in terms of classroom size. One is the amount of square feet in a room. We're only allowed to put so many students per 20 square feet. And then also, I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, 20 square feet and 6 feet apart. And I think desks have to be facing the same way. Yeah. And so those things will matter. Oh, and the last thing is no more than 22 no more than 22 people in a room. And so we'll have to follow those guidelines. In terms of on a bus, the new guidance from TEA today, give a little bit of wiggle room. Family members can sit together in the same area, same seat on a bus, although if they're not family members living in the same household, that 6 feet of guidance still comes into effect, which means one person per seat, every other seat. I will say this, that really puts a strain on our number of kids and people we can put on a bus. I think one of the things that we will recommend to families is if your kids can walk to school, ride bikes to school, if you as parents can bring them to school, that will help us tremendously. It will also help keep us from putting a lot of people on a bus. Transportation is a huge issue as we start to go through and plan for this. The time it's going to take to get kids to school, clean buses afterwards, and send them back out is going to be very difficult.
Will students still have things like field trips? And then also maybe leading into extracurricular and UIL events?
The answer on field trips is most likely not. We don't plan to plan many field trips, if any. Student rewards activities will have to be done at school, and they'll have to be limited in both size and how many are done. UIL activities, UIL currently right now has summer workouts going on. We have not gotten any indication as to what will happen in the fall. The best answer I can give you right now is that we just don't know. I think as we get closer to the time, we'll learn more and know more. But I don't have a sense either way as yes, UIL activities will take place, or no, UIL activities won't take place.
What possible financial effect will the COVID-19 pandemic have on our school district?
We expect to give our board a balanced budget. Our business office has done a great job putting that together. The one thing we are also planning for is we expect to have to spend more than expected expenditures on things like custodial cleaning of the school, both in personnel and supplies, transportation costs. If we're only able to put 13 to 20 kids, on a bus, then the cost of running those buses and the cost of fuel will be much, much more. And then the cost of additional personnel in terms of subs or aides into a school, we're planning to do that as well. We've planned for the worst case scenario for that. We kind of know what that number is. That money would be above what we've planned for in our regular budget, but we're very lucky that AISD has a very healthy fund balance, money in savings, and so that money, any expenditures we have to get from COVID will come from our fund balance and our savings. We will not, and I have made this point a couple of times to certain groups, we will not be raising taxes. That will not happen. We will operate within the budgets that we have, and any extra expenditures will come from our savings. We will not pass those costs onto our taxpayers.
You mentioned maybe possible extra custodial. So one of the questions we had is how many times will the school be cleaned a week?
The school will be cleaned every night after kids leave. There will also be certain cleans that will be going on during the school day. Typically we may clean a bathroom during the school day, possibly once. That will change to at least 3 times a day. And the cleaning that will go on at night will be very extensive. All doorknobs will be wiped down, all desks will be disinfected, the whole school will be disinfected and cleaned thoroughly every night. Any surfaces that people touch will be cleaned thoroughly every night. And so that's where those extra costs, again, of cleaning supplies and extra personnel to make that happen will be happening. And so we will be very thorough in our cleaning. And then, like I said, also, those extra minutes that we're accumulating, if we see illnesses starting to spike in a school or throughout the district, then we will be able to shut down schools immediately and go in and clean schools even more thoroughly during that shutdown.
Will this affect the bond projects that were just passed earlier in the school year?
No, it will not. That money, the voters passed. We've been given a budget. There's nothing that's changed about that. In fact, I will tell you during the last 3.5 months, we have made tremendous progress on our construction project. that are all on schedule and all within budget. And so everything seems to be going very well, and we don't expect any stops to that at all.
How do you plan to help students with their social and emotional needs as they come back from the crisis?
We know kids are going to have a tough time coming back. It's much like we've seen that when we have shutdowns due to hurricanes, things like that. It affects kids. Kids having to be at home over long periods of time, not be able to see their friends, not be able to see their social groups is going to be tough. Having to leave home to come back to school, we see those issues. We expect to add to our budget next year a second licensed professional counselor to the district and 2 additional social workers that will be able to be used to help kids in our school. That's on top of the counseling staff we already had, along with some other outside groups like Community in Schools that work in our schools to help kids with those social and emotional needs. I can tell you our budget has, and we're committing, I believe, about $250,000 to counseling, social workers, things like that in our next school budget for next year.
How and when can I register my child for school?
Well, currently pre-K registration is going on, and so if you have a kid in pre-K or kindergarten, you can do that now. You can go to our website and go online and register your kid there, or your student there. If you don't have access to the internet or you need some help with that, please call our main number at 979-864-8000, and we will be happy to help you or schedule a time in which we can help you or get you online to register. Registration for all students 1st through 12th grade will take place online after the 4th of July. I believe that 4th is on a Saturday, so that will go live July 6th. And all students can go in and register at that time. If you're a new student into the district, you can fill out the forms needed for that. If you're returning students, our hope is that you will just have to click a button and everything will populate if all your information is the same. And so all of that will be done online again starting in July for students in grades 1 through 12.
And I want to comment, I know that I'm getting some feedback that there might be some technical difficulties out there. We're going to make sure we post all these answers in our update center. So if you're not able to actually hear something, let's make sure you go to the update center. We'll try to put all the Q&A answers in there for you. Speaking of the update center, do you want to talk about how people should get information, plan to get their information?
Let me just say there's a couple of times, obviously we're ending school now, and so we know there's a lot of questions about school, which is why we're doing this event. I think we're going to continue to post information on our update center. I made the joke about Hannah calling, but you're probably not going to hear from us unless it's very, very important over the next month or two. We expect to have our return to school plan finalized towards the end of July, and so I would recommend that you really start to pay attention to our social media posts, our web page, our what's our link that we have?
The AISD Update Center.
The AISD Update Center. You'll start to see information more frequently towards the end of July, and that is without a doubt the best place to go to get accurate information about our schools is that AISD Update Center on our webpage. So I would recommend that you pay attention to those places. We will probably do another Facebook Live around the 1st of August when we have more details and can explain more in depth about what will be going on in our schools at the start of next year. Again, it will be much, much more detailed than what I'm able to give you right now.
And again, we'll put all the Q&A answers up on that update center as soon as we can get them typed up, because I know some of you are having trouble with issues with the technology. We apologize. We have a few questions that have come in while we've been doing some of the other questions. I'm going to hit on those. If I have a high school student who's supposed to get a certification through a class, how will that be made up?
I guess the question I would have is if they were supposed to get a certification at the end of this year, then they probably need to contact, and that hadn't happened yet, then they need to contact the high school, I'd say very quickly, because we're working through, and we still have some kids that have to get those certifications either through testing that are still being scheduled to be done. But for specifics about your child or your student for this year, they need to call the high school this week, and they can give you that specific information. In terms of next year, we plan on continuing on our CTE classes, the enrollments, and we expect to offer all certifications that were available this year and in the years past, be able to offer them next year. And then I'll just segue into this. Our new CTE center that was passed at the bond, we are going through the planning stages of that. And I think as we start to be able to put that information out to the public, it's very, very exciting. We're going to be able to offer additional certifications to our students when this building comes online. And so that's a very exciting thing that we have going on right now.
You kind of touched on this, but maybe repeat it. When can I register my child if I'm new to the area?
If your student is a pre-K or kindergarten student, you can do that now online. If you're not able to get online and you need help, please call our main central administration building at 979-864-8000. If your student is grades 1 through 12, then starting July 6th, I believe, our online registration for that will go live at that time, and you can register your kid starting then.
Will class sizes be reduced to eliminate overcrowded classrooms? We have another question about class capacity as well.
Again, we will follow the guidelines that TEA has put out. They put out new guidelines today. They're supposed to put out final guidelines next week. Right now, those guidelines say that no more than 22 people can be in a classroom at one time. And so we will have to come up with schedules and ways to have school to meet those guidelines. Not only is it just 22 people, but there's also square footage guidelines. We have to keep kids 6 feet apart. All of those things will be in play as we go to schedule. It may affect what the regular school day looks like for students. And so again, you heard me talk about maybe some kids come in the morning, some kids come in the afternoon, possibly AB days to be able to meet those guidelines. And so those are the things that once we get final guidelines from TEA, we'll spend the next 4 to 5 weeks working out the exact details of all of those things.
And in that information, will you also maybe give more examples of hybrid teaching method? We have a question about will classes incorporate a hybrid teaching method, and I'm assuming they mean that blended.
Yes, yes, the answer to that is with the current guidelines that we expect from TEA, that's exactly where we think, that's my guess as to where we will be. I can tell you we are investing time in training our staff on how to do both teaching in a classroom, but also teaching remotely and online. And so, and then we're also working on ideas, and we have plans on how we can make sure that all of our students are equipped to work remotely from home, and trying to do away with the paper and pencil model that we had to do this year. Our goal is we want every kid to be connected through the internet, and if they have to do some learning at home next year, that they have that ability. And so we are currently working on making sure we have Chromebooks that are working, and also making sure that students who don't have internet access in their house have hotspots, and so that we can help provide internet access into their homes. We're working very feverishly on that, and we hope to have those things in the district by the start of school.
That actually feeds into the very next question. We have multiple, with the different scenarios, we have students going back to Chromebook and laptop learning plan. Should I plan to get all of my children their own laptop or learning tool so that they can work from home?
That's a determination that you have to, you as a parent need to make. Again, I think our goal is, if we have to go to that next year, is that we expect to be able to equip all students with Chromebooks to be able to be used at home. And then again, if you don't have reliable internet access in your home, we are working very hard to help solve that problem for you.
And be able to bring the Chromebook back and forth.
Back and forth to kids, yes.
Okay.
I think we will have very serious discussions about if this goes to a hybrid model, that each kid, and we'll have to make a determination about what grade levels we start that at, but each kid will have a Chromebook that will most likely be theirs. Well, let me restate, not theirs. That would be assigned to them, much like a textbook checked out to them.
Checked out to them, like a textbook.
We're not giving them
Old school textbook style. You've already hit on this a little bit, but how would high school students on an open campus eat lunch in classes?
We're talking about sack lunches or lunches on disposable items, and so that wouldn't be happening. This isn't working very well.
I'm sorry if you can still hear us, we're having trouble with our video. Give us just 1 minute, we're gonna try to work on some technical things. I apologize. My team is keeping me in check.
Is it, we don't have internet access in this room very well?
No,
Hmm,
no, sir.
that's not the
Just
issue.
assume that we're on, no?
Is it being recorded though? So they can
I don't have it
see
being
it?
recorded, but, I mean, yes, everything's recorded on Facebook. We may just not have video.
Oh, no, I'm seeing lots of comments
It's
about
in and
cutting
out, yeah, the lagging. Let me double check. Again, sorry, we're double checking. I apologize. Give us just 1 minute. We don't want to keep answering questions if we don't know that y'all can see us. Definitely. Let me see.
Yeah, we might step out there and see. I'm guessing.
Again, thank you for bearing with us. Sorry, I just got nervous. They still can see us, so I'm assuming they can still hear us.
Sorry, we're trying to work out some technical. We really do apologize. We're getting confirmation to see if we can proceed without our image showing. We're not sure if y'all are able to see us or not. I'd like to say, speaking as the person who did call y'all, if this is going, to say thank y'all for the patience you've had with all the calls and everything. Like we said, it is always, we lean on the side of more communication because we'd rather you get the communication and decide not to listen to it versus not have it at all. So thank you for that.
So do we,
I'm asking, they're not answering. We're gonna keep going. I think we should just keep going. The question was how would high school students on an open campus eat at lunch? You kind of answered that some through the stack lunches. Also, how would teachers get a duty-free lunch this way?
we're required to give duty-free lunches, and I think that's one of the things that we're looking at, why we may need some extra people to be able to help so that teachers can get that duty-free time.
And we got confirmation they can hear us and see us. We just
Okay.
can't see ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry guys, we can't see ourselves, so we assumed the thing stopped since we heard some other things. Sorry about that. Will there be restrictions on visitors to campuses, like lunch with students, other programs that they do at the elementaries and such?
The short answer to that question is most likely yes. The guidance, unless it's a necessity that parents or outside visitors are on campus, things like teacher meetings, about academics, things like that, we would allow those kinds of things to happen, but most likely open lunches at this time, we're thinking no, that will not be the case.
How will we address the transition back into the classroom for students after the COVID break? Some kids might be behind in classes and there might be issues with lessons. Are you preparing on how to handle those students?
That's a great question. Let me talk a little bit about our plan for doing that. When our kids come back, we expect to take the first couple of weeks to do two things. One is to incorporate them back into the school, back into the classroom, teach them the procedures that we need them to have, both how we normally handle school and how we handle school in this COVID situation. Things like washing hands, how to stay away from each other, 6 feet away from each other, how to do things like that. The second thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving all of our students assessments, particularly paying attention to reading and math. And so we can determine what levels they're on, where the learning gaps have taken place, and how we need to make up and teach and fill in those learning gaps that our students have. We will spend probably the next 3 to 4 weeks after that is going back and doing any reteaching of things that have been missed before we really start the next grade level of school that they're in. But it will be very individualized for our students. I'd say the other thing that we have to remember is this, is that students who have gaps, it's probably not going to be something that gets made up in a year or even a month or a year. It may take a couple of years to get everybody caught back up. And so that's kind of how our thinking is going. Again, the thing I would say that's very, very important is we're going to assess every kid when they come back from school in multiple of ways so we can determine exactly what their levels of learning are, and then how we go about filling in, if students have learning gaps, how we go about filling in those gaps will be very individualized. And so that way we're able to work with all kids and get them caught up in their academics.
Would it be possible, we have a few questions similar to this, but would it be possible for a student who has an autoimmune disorder to not attend school physically, but to be able to do remote learning for his high school classes?
We expect to get final guidance on that from TEA again next week. I believe, I can't say for sure at this time, but we believe the answer will be yes. That AISD, if a parent or a student chooses to not to return to school during the COVID crisis, that we will be able to provide them remote learning full time. And again, as part of our return to school plan, those are the plans that we're making to meet the needs of all kids, those who are in our buildings and those who are not able to be in our buildings.
What considerations are being made for special needs students? You've already mentioned that there's no requirement of a mask
Correct.
necessarily. So those students who would struggle to put a mask
They
on
will
will
not,
not
they
be
most
required.
likely, they will not have to wear a mask.
Okay.
Again, the teachers will have their planning time and duty-free lunch next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not hiring, are we hiring more teachers to handle like lower class sizes? You kind of already answered that one. Will there be shields around desks?
That is something that we are, I don't want to say we're studying, that's something we're looking to do. The problem is I've explored that, is every school district in the nation wants shields around desks, and those are not in ready supply right now. We know that there are things that are in supply, things like masks, gloves, disinfectant, hand sanitizer. We expect to have plenty of those things in, and also TEA in the state of Texas is going to be providing us a lot of those types of materials. Things like desk dividers, we'll work very hard to have those things in. We're not sure that we will. However, there are some things we can do that are a little bit maybe cheaper material that we will allow that we'll be able to do to have desk dividers in as well. And so, and it's one of those things we're exploring, and as we go through the summer months, we expect to have better, more concrete answers on those kinds of things.
Will there be, and maybe some confusion from our parents on this, but will there be a parent preference if the child will be taught by a teacher or a teacher aide? Because of concerns about their children struggling.
All of our students will be taught by certified teachers.
Certified teachers, yeah.
Now, that does not mean at certain times during the day they may get pulled out to work with an aide, but what they're learning and what they're doing at that time will be determined by the child certified teachers. And so we don't expect, I don't see a scenario in which a student would be with an aide all day long. We expect to have certified teachers determining the lessons and being with our students for their learning.
You kind of touched on this before, but can we continue distance learning as a parent if we do not feel comfortable sending them back?
Again, TEA will give us the final guidance on that, but we are expecting that to be a yes.
Okay.
Of course, TEA's made me eat my words before, so we'll see.
Well, Is there going to be some form of freshman orientation to learn the campus? You know, they have orientations on some of the campuses.
I think that's something that each school will have, those like meet the teacher night, pick up schedules, freshman orientation. They're working on plans how to do that. Again, you'll get more direction in the upcoming weeks.
When will we know about school transfers being approved?
Right now, those have been put on hold. I would expect sometime probably around the 1st of July that we would be able to let people know about school transfers.
This is a good question. If we do have alternate scheduling, will you work with families to make sure siblings aren't on the same schedule even if they are on different campuses?
That's a great question, and my answer is we've actually talked about this. We will do our very best to make sure siblings are scheduled to be at the very same time. I don't want to get into guarantees because we never know what may happen or what programs kids will be in and how we have to schedule those things. But again, that will be at the forefront of us making decisions about if we have to put different kids coming into campuses at different times.
Will teachers be simultaneously teaching online and in person?
We don't expect that to happen. What we think will happen is we know there will be a certain percentage of kids who will only want to do remote learning, and so we expect to assign staff who are just dedicated to remote learning and have staff that are dedicated to in-person and classroom learning. And so, but again, once we get the final guidelines in, we'll spend the next 5 or 6 weeks and finalize those plans exactly.
Would you answer again about providing Chromebooks and internet access if we go to that blended learning model?
Again, we are working very hard. We will have the ability to provide Chromebooks to our students if we have to do remote learning. We are working very hard to have enough hotspots in the district by the start of next school year to meet the needs of our families who don't have reliable internet access in their home.
The final question that I'm seeing, and if y'all have questions, please make sure you enter them so we can get them answered for y'all. But it's a lengthier one, so I want to make sure and ask it. Can you elaborate on how the bond would be affected in the event that the tax abatement were to not go through due to economic uncertainty?
That's a great question, and I can tell you we've actually done that work. And the answer is the bond will not be affected. Your tax rates will not be affected. When we were promoting the bond last fall, the comments that were made is that your tax rates will not go up. That's going to happen. Your tax rates will not go up from the school district, and that in a few years we would start to be able to lower our tax rate. Our analysis has been, even if those economic conditions hit, those exact things will still happen. Tax rates will stay the same, and we expect tax rates to start trending down in the next few years.
Will there be COVID testing in order to return to school?
At this point, the answer is we have not heard that will be a requirement. I've heard some talk among our government officials that that's what they'd like to be able to do, is to have enough tests out there so that kids would be tested before they came back to school. But I don't know if that's actually feasible by the middle of August. And so I do not feel that will be a requirement to come back at this time. But again, we'll get guidance from the state as we move forward, and we'll communicate any of those changes or any of that guidance in the upcoming weeks.
Okay. So we're not swabbing kids when they walk in?
We will not be doing testing, no.
Okay.
The only thing we will be doing is doing temperature checks and then screening kids for symptoms.
Okay.
But no, in terms of us doing tests or vaccinations at school at this time, I have not heard that would be happening, and I don't expect that to be being done at this time.
So I'm not seeing any more questions at this point. I do want to reiterate that we will put out more information on our update center and to definitely communicate very important information to y'all through all of our channels of social media, mass notification, and again also on the update center. So encourage y'all to keep looking at the update center. We're going to get these Q&A up there as well in the next few days so that we can get those, you can refer back to them as needed. And if you have questions, you can continue to call in at 979-864-8000 That's the administration building, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
Right. And remind everybody, Hannah, that we are now open 5 days a week.
Right.
From 8 to 4:30, and so those are our hours of operation here in central administration. So if you call during that time, we will answer your call. We may not have an answer for you right away, but we will get back with you and get you an answer just as soon as possible.
And when you say open, our facilities aren't necessarily open for
We're
public.
not taking public visitors. We would ask if you need to have a meeting at any of our campuses. Actually, campus offices are open, but if you need to have a meeting at a campus office or at central administration, that you call and make an appointment. But if you call that 8,000 number that I've given out a couple of times, 979-864-8000, ask your questions. We will find the person who can give you the best answer.
And we know you have concerns and you have questions. We're happy to help. We always do our best during our Facebook Live events to answer as many as we can. We're going to do another Facebook Live event, like Mr. Edwards said, at the start of August, after we get some more firmed up planning done. At this time, do you want to turn it over to the
Absolutely.
Spanish? Okay, and so at this time, Maria Macedo, our Central Elementary Principal, is going to give a lot of the information and highlights in Spanish. And Maria, I'm happy to ask you the questions, or if you just want to ask and answer, that's fine.
I can go with you if that's
Perfect. So Maria will be taking over. If you have questions, we'll still be monitoring, and I can ask her or Mr. Edwards during this time.
Hola, buenas tardes. Les queremos dar el bienvenido por estar aquí con nosotros en Facebook Live esta tarde. Hoy vamos a estar dándole las respuestas a unas preguntas que ustedes han tenido. Primeramente, les queremos dar las gracias por haber terminado la encuesta que mandamos hace unas cuantas semanas o hace como un mes. La encuesta fue muy importante y nos dio unos datos fuertes que podemos mejorar, porque siempre la meta de nosotros es seguir mejorando para ustedes y para nuestros alumnos. Sí vamos a hablar sobre nuevas expectativas si regresamos a la escuela. Ahorita también voy a darles unas respuestas al acceso del internet, lo que estamos haciendo para preparar para una posible situación como la que tuvimos al fin del año, y también vamos a decirles por qué había tanta comunicación. La razón que teníamos tanta comunicación es que nosotros en verdad que queríamos que ustedes estuvieran bien informados con todo lo que estaba pasando aquí de día a día. La encuesta que ustedes llenaron nos dieron nos daron a entender qué fue lo que trabajó bien y qué es lo que todavía necesitamos seguir trabajando. Una de las preguntas que nos han preguntado es ¿cómo ha afectado la situación de COVID-19 al calendario escolar para el próximo año? Anoche tuvieron una junta directiva aquí en la administración y para el próximo año se han visto, vamos a tener unos cambios al calendario. En vez de regresar el 19 de agosto, vamos a venir el 17 de agosto. También se han agregado 5 minutos al horario del día. La razón que agregamos los días es que queremos tener más tiempo por si algo como lo que sucedió al fin del año vuelve a ocurrir. No nada más eso, sino también si hay un huracán o cualquier otra emergencia que tal vez tendremos. Con estos días extras que hemos agregado al calendario nos da poquita flexibilidad para poder tomar días si es necesario. Nosotros agarramos fondos por los días que estamos en la escuela y los minutos. Entonces el calendario escolar que hemos revisitado con los cambios nos va a dar suficientes días para todavía recibir los fondos y para todavía tener suficiente tiempo en los salones. Muchas preguntas que nos han preguntado es ¿cómo será el comienzo de la escuela? Sí, tenemos 3 diferentes escenarios que estamos planeando. Un plan será que los niños no regresarán como terminamos el año. Otro plan es que todos puedan venir. O también tenemos otra opción donde tal vez los estudiantes, por ejemplo, si ellos están en la primaria, vendrán mediodía en la mañana y mediodía en la tarde. Si ellos están en la secundaria, tal vez vendrán un día y luego otro día viendo diferentes maestros. Ahorita todavía no tenemos los planes finales, pero sí queremos decirles que por favor sean muy flexibles con nosotros, porque sí son muchos datos y pautas que nos ha dado TEA, entonces queremos estar nosotros alineados con todas las pautas y sí es algo trabajoso, pero estamos haciendo lo más mejor que podamos para poder tener seguridad que los niños puedan venir. Tenemos que ver muchas cosas como la capacidad de nuestros edificios. También nos han dicho que tal vez solamente podrán haber 22 personas en un salón. Tenemos que ver los pies cuadrados. Los niños necesitan estar 6 pies de retirados. Entonces hay muchas preguntas y muchos datos que tenemos que repasar. Pero por favor confíe en nosotros que vamos a hacer lo más mejor posible para su estudiante. La hora de los almuerzos, ahorita el plan es que los alumnos van a comer en los salones, pero van a seguir retirados 6 pies. Si es que van a la cafetería, van a estar bien retirados, que serán los 6 pies entre cada alumno. Han preguntado también si los niños van a tener educación física o si van a salir a recreo. Ahorita el plan es que sí, pero tenemos que seguir las pautas que nos ha dado TEA. Dependiendo del sistema que vayamos a usar, no sabemos muy bien ahorita cómo van a llegar los alumnos o irse a la casa. Lo que sí sabemos sobre el Departamento de Transportación es que los niños van a seguir las pautas de estar 6 pies de retirados. Sí hemos repasado que los alumnos que son familias se pueden sentar juntos. Ellos sí pueden estar juntos, pero otros niños que no tienen la familia sí tienen que estar retirados. La verdad es que no sabemos muy bien cómo va a estar la situación ya cuando regresemos, pero les recuerdo de nuevo que por favor sean flexibles y entiendan que estamos haciendo el trabajo más mejor que podamos para asegurarnos que todos vamos a estar seguros. Espera un momento. Siempre también preguntado que qué posible efecto financiero tendrá la pandemia COVID-19 en nuestro distrito escolar. Nuestra oficina de financieras tienen un balance de propuestos en la oficina de negocios y ahorita todo se ve bien, estamos planeando adelantado. No van a haber aumentos de impuestos de las taxas. Muchas personas han preguntado que si van a subir las taxas, los impuestos, y ahorita la respuesta para eso es no. Hablando de eso, sí hemos tenido proyectos del bono que todavía están todavía no están trabajando en eso. Ahorita todo está como ha estado planeado, todo está bien en el calendario y todos los proyectos siguen como aún los hemos planeado.
A whole lot shorter time than I did.
Unas preguntas que llegaron después es que si un alumno tiene una desorden de autoinmune, si es necesario mandarlos. Ahorita todavía estamos esperando que TEA nos mande las respuestas para eso. De nuevo les recuerdo que ahorita no tenemos todas las respuestas, pero estamos haciendo lo más mejor que podamos para poder ayudarle a usted con sus alumnos. Cuando regresemos a la escuela, han preguntado también cómo se van a ver las cosas, cómo van a estar los niños en los salones, qué es la materia que vamos a estar repasando o cómo vamos a asegurarnos que los niños todavía sigan saludables. Y cuando regresemos vamos a seguir con los procedimientos que incluirán que los niños cómo lavarse las manos, a repasar todo eso. Para lo académico vamos a tener evaluaciones en matemáticas y en lectura. Vamos a repasar estas evaluaciones y luego vamos a volver a enseñar lo que los niños todavía necesiten. Una de las preguntas que se preguntaron temprano fue si los niños van a estar con maestras o con ayudantes. Y la respuesta para eso es que ellos van a recibir toda su materia de las maestras, pero si es necesario, si es posible que la asistente o el asistente puede todavía ayudar con la materia. Al fin de julio pensamos y esperamos tener el plan finalizado ya para empezar en agosto. También otra pregunta que tuvimos es si usted tiene un hijo o una hija en high school y ellos tienen un certificado que está pendiente, tal vez si pueda hacer algo de welding o cualquier clase de CTE, que son las clases que toman los estudiantes. Por favor, comuníquese con la high school para agarrar más información. Otra pregunta que hemos tenido es sobre la inscripción de alumnos. Ahorita sí se puede hacer la inscripción en línea para los de pre-kinder y kinder. Para el 6 de agosto, que es el lunes después del 4 de julio, en ese momento pueden empezar a inscribirse a todos los otros grados. Entonces, si usted necesita inscribir a su alumno, puede hacerlo en línea, pero en cualquier momento, si usted tiene cualquier pregunta, por favor no dude llamar a su escuela o administración, y el número de teléfono ahí es 979-864-8000. Una pregunta que también se ha preguntado es la limpieza de las escuelas o de los salones. Por favor, entienda que los salones los van a limpiar a fondo todos los días en la tarde. Van a estar limpios. Sí vamos a tener más empleados que nos pueden ayudar a limpiar las escuelas para que estén bien limpias y sanitadas para los alumnos. Otra pregunta muy importante que nos han preguntado es si será necesario que los alumnos se pongan las máscaras. Y ahorita no es necesario que los alumnos se pongan la máscara, pero si usted quiere que su alumno se ponga una, por favor mándele una. Sí, tal vez, ahorita no sabemos, pero tal vez sí vamos a tener las máscaras para las maestras, maestros, los que trabajen en las escuelas, pero en este momento no tenemos planeado comprar para sus alumnos. Entonces, si usted gustaría que su alumno se ponga una, por favor, mándelo a la escuela con una máscara. También se preguntaron que si íbamos a tener escudos alrededor de los escritorios, y en este momento eso no está planeado, pero como les he dicho, todo puede cambiar y todavía estamos planeando, pero por favor siga siendo flexible con nosotros mientras que estamos trabajando entre todos estos detalles. Una otra cosa que vamos a tener una detección para donde va a tomar la temperatura. Cuando los alumnos entren a la escuela, va a haber una máquina que les va a tomar la temperatura. Entonces usted no se tiene que preocupar que ellos estén en una línea larga porque va a estar una persona tomándole las temperaturas, sino que vamos a tener la máquina que va a darnos la temperatura, así sabemos cómo está la temperatura de los niños, pero también todavía vamos a tener a nuestras enfermeras que van a estar deteccionando a cualquier síntoma del COVID-19. A los finales de julio vamos a volver a tener otro Facebook Live, entonces si usted tiene cualquier pregunta, de nuevo puede hablar a una de las escuelas, aquí administración al 979-864-8000, o también puede ir a la página web de Angleton ISD y ahí todavía sigue la información. Pero si no, a los finales de julio o los principios de agosto nos volvemos a ver aquí en Facebook Live para darles las respuestas a las preguntas que ustedes tienen. Muchas gracias.
And we did have, thank you, Mr. Peter, so much for that. We did have a few questions that I saw come in. We mentioned about lunches at the high school, and specifically, will it still be an open campus for those levels that can go off campus?
I'd say at this time that determination hasn't been made.
Okay.
And when we get more guidance, we'll be able to make a better informed decision about things like that.
Are we thinking about class changeovers at the high school and junior high since it's a mass group of kids walking the hallways, usually?
Yes, we have several scenarios that maybe, in which we hope to be able to limit those types of transactions. And again, once we get final guidance from TEA, we'll be able to work out those details and be able to communicate those again in the upcoming weeks.
And we had another question, a little more vague, but maybe you can touch on it. What about providing special education services in the elementary classrooms? You touched on it some.
We would continue to, excuse me for just a second. We would expect to continue special education of the services that those students get. Our special ed department has been working very hard. It's a very difficult situation as we go through this to provide services to kids, but we will continue to provide those services.
And
Excuse me.
that does seem to be the majority. I think we touched on all the questions that you had. If you're still with us and you have some, you can get them in maybe right under the wire. Otherwise, remember, you can call us 979-864-8000 or refer back to the Q&A that we'll post up on our update center in the next few days that may have some of the frequently asked questions or answer some of those questions if you joined us a little later. Again, we apologize for that little bit of technical issue we had in the middle of this and some of that lagging we had at the beginning. Hopefully it seems to have fixed itself. If you have questions and concerns, we're here for you. Thank you for being patient with us, and thank you for all the understanding that you did in these last few months. We know it's been difficult. If you want to touch on that at all.
Well, we understand the difficulty that it's been that this situation has placed on our families and our community. It's placed those same difficulties on our school. I will say this, I think our community and our students and our staff have done a great job during this time adjusting and making the best of the situation. I think everybody's worked very, very hard. We appreciate the confidence and the flexibility that people have had with us. We're going to continue to work through this situation, and we're going to continue. Our goal is to continue to try to make sure our students learn, that they're academically successful, and that they have great experiences and safe experiences in our schools. And so we're not going to put kids in situations that aren't safe. And again, we think Angleton ISD will continue to provide the best educational experiences for your students.
And that's it. And we want to thank you again for joining us. We'll come back to y'all closer to the start of school, at the start of August, and do another Facebook Live. Again, thank you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.